John Milton's Paradise Lost is widely regarded as one of the greatest poems ever composed in the English language. This epic poem encompasses two distinct narratives: the biblical account of Adam and Eve, detailing their fall from grace and subsequent expulsion from the Garden of Eden, and the tale of Satan, or Lucifer, who, along with his fellow fallen angels, is forced to forge a new home after being cast out of heaven. To provide some background, John Milton was an English poet born in 1608. He was a staunch advocate for freedom of speech and freedom of the press, principles that undoubtedly influenced his literary works. Milton held a critical view of the monarchy, and this perspective is believed to have contributed to his more sympathetic portrayal of Satan. Rather than merely depicting him as evil, Milton aims to narrate Satan's story in a way that evokes understanding. Paradise Lost was first published in 1667 and initially consisted of 10 books. In 1674, it was revised and expanded to include 12 books. Milton is celebrated as one of the greatest English poets of all time, and Paradise Lost is often considered his magnum opus, the pinnacle of his creative achievement. Understanding stories and poetry from centuries past can be challenging at times. Therefore, I hope this overview of John Milton's Paradise Lost proves to be both comprehensible and, at the very least, entertaining. The poem commences with a brief exploration of humankind's disobedience toward God, referencing the moment when Adam and Eve consumed the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. Milton's speaker presents this narrative in a thoughtful manner. Some of the blame falls on the infernal serpent, the fallen angel that he refers to as Satan, and some of us may know as Lucifer. This angel stirred hatred, envy, and revenge. He placed himself above his peers, believing his glory to be equal to God's. This arrogance led to a war in heaven, resulting in God hurling Satan and his followers from heaven into a fiery pit below. The fallen angels wake up in a lake of fire in Tartarus, or what we know as hell, where they are bound by adamantine chains. When Satan wakes, he describes his surroundings: a dungeon horrible on all sides round, as one great furnace flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible. For those rebellious hear their prison ordained in utter darkness, and their portion set as far removed from God and light of heaven. Milton does a great job here contrasting the two domains. If heaven is a place in the sky full of light, then wherever Satan and the other fallen angels have woken is a dungeon, a fiery abyss where only darkness is visible, a prison for the fallen. Next to Satan is his second in command, Beelzebub. Despite their predicament, Satan feels no regret for his rebellion against God. In fact, he sees this time as a period of regrouping before they launch their next attack. Beelzebub, however, is not so convinced after witnessing their failure the first time. He questions whether God can be defeated. Satan doesn't dismiss this idea. Rather than another battle head-on, he suggests a new tactic. God has many beloved creatures, and what if they could corrupt them? To do aught good will never be our task, but ever to do ill our sole delight, as being contrary to his high will whom we resist. If then his providence out of our evil seek to bring forth good, our labor must be to pervert to that end, and out of good to still find means of evil. Rather than another battle in heaven, what Satan is recommending is a proxy war, halfway in between heaven and hell, using God's favorite creations. With a plan in mind, the two angels spread their wings and leave the river of fire. Many argue here that they did not break free of their chains. Instead, they were allowed to leave because this was not the punishment that God intended. Flying above, they scour the land and come to the conclusion that it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Once on land, Satan calls out to his fellow fallen angels and beckons them to his cause. The speech had its desired effects, as the fallen angels woke from their slumber and gathered around Satan, who informed them that they had been erased from the book of life and the other books in heaven. But all was not lost, as even demons could be worshipped like gods in the eyes of man. During this speech, we learn the names of a few more fallen angels turned demons: Moloch, the king of human sacrifice, and the lustful Belial. By the end of this speech, Satan had transformed the thousands of wounded and disheveled angels into an army that once again believed in a cause. Instead of being ashamed of their actions, they should embrace their evil nature and be proud of the demons they have become. They could make themselves a new home here in hell, and to mark this day, they constructed a great temple in the city known as Pandemonium, which in Greek means all the demons. In Latin, Pandemonium became the focal point where all the demons gathered for council. In the first gathering here, Satan is honest with his peers. The war in heaven was difficult, and it might just be impossible for them to ever retake heaven. He opens the floor to anyone who wants to speak, and up steps Moloch. Moloch favors the direct approach of open war, believing they should lay siege to heaven once again, but this time using the newfound weapons of hell. Moloch is driven by revenge and anger. To him, there is nothing worse than their fate in hell, not even death. So, there is nothing to lose by striking now, when those in heaven least expect them to. To him, there is no downside to this plan. Either way, they are free from hell. Next to speak is a much calmer Belial. He believes their punishment could be even worse if they choose to attack heaven again. There might come a time when God even forgives them for their betrayal. But Belial doesn't necessarily advocate for peace. They should wait and see what God has planned for them, and then act upon the matter. Next forward is Mammon. He doesn't call for war either, but also accepts that he will never bow down to God again. Mammon calls for industry. They are free to do as they please in hell. If they work together, they can make hell a kingdom as great as heaven. This idea is met with applause and garners the most support from his fellow demons so far. The last to speak is Beelzebub, who also wishes to be free of God's servitude. He tells his peers stories he heard in heaven about the creation of a new world that would be populated by man, a new race that God loves even more than angels. They can have their revenge by corrupting and destroying these humans without another war. This suggestion garners even more support than the idea put forward by Mammon. When their votes are cast, it is the idea discussed by Beelzebub and Satan that is chosen as their plan of action. It is Satan who volunteers to leave hell and scout for this promised land. With Satan gone, the council reconvenes and discusses how to begin building hell into a kingdom that can rival heaven. Satan now has the rather difficult task of finding a way out of hell. Eventually, he reaches the gates, of which there are 9 in total, 3 made from brass, 3 from iron, and lastly 3 from adamantine. Guarding these gates, he sees 2 figures in the distance, a woman with the lower half of a serpent surrounded by a pack of dogs, and the second shrouded in darkness. These 2 figures are known as sin and death. Satan confronts this woman and demands that he is allowed to pass. Now this is where things start to get strange. She asks him if he has forgotten who they are. She then explains that they are his children, sin and death. From his actions as an angel, sin was created, springing forth from his head. She was then impregnated by Satan, giving birth to death, who then in turn impregnated sin, and this time she gave birth to a pack of hounds that follow and torment her. Satan's children were responsible for guarding the gates of hell, as well as the keys needed to open them. He soon realizes that his children can be persuaded to join his cause. After explaining the plot for vengeance against God, his children are persuaded, and sin, using the keys, unlocks the gates of hell. Ahead of him is only darkness, but Satan chooses to leave hell and fly straight into the darkness. Caught in a storm, Satan falls through the sky until he catches a ride on a cloud, flying blindly toward the noise he can hear. He finds himself in the presence of chaos and night, the rulers of this dark abyss. I come no spy with purpose to explore or to disturb the secrets of your realm, ensuring chaos and night that he means no ill will. He finds himself explaining his plan once again and asking for assistance to find this new world. By claiming this new world and corrupting it with evil, Satan claims that chaos can also reign here freely, which is enough to convince them to join his cause. Chaos points to where a new world has been created, and Satan assumes that this must be the prophesied earth created by God for mankind. Sin and death follow slowly behind Satan, creating a bridge from hell to this new world, which will allow the demons of hell to easily travel back and forth between the two. In Book 3, we shift perspective to heaven, where God has been watching everything transpire. He can see Satan traveling to earth and knows that this will lead to the fall of man. The free will he gave to man is what will lead to this corruption and downfall. However, it is the free will to love that makes man different from the angels and God's other creations. Back to Satan, who has now found earth. When he lands, he sees an enormous gate that has a stairway that he assumes connects earth to heaven. Satan sees God's creation in all its glory and feels an overwhelming jealousy. Drawn in by the sun, he comes across an angel standing on a hill that he recognizes as Archangel Uriel. Satan takes the form of a cherub and approaches Uriel. He lies to Uriel, telling him he has just come down from heaven, curious about this new world and its inhabitants. Uriel is unable to see past Satan's disguise and is actually rather happy to see an angel come down from heaven with an interest in learning about this new world that God has created. He even makes the mistake of showing him paradise, where Adam and Eve live. Satan thanks Uriel for sharing his knowledge and flies off into the distance with the information he came for. Satan lands on Mount Nefertis. As he contemplates the task ahead of him, seeing the beauty of Eden and paradise reminds him of a time in heaven when he still possessed his innocence. He begins to have an internal struggle, and unknown to him, Archangel Uriel is watching this unfold. He questions whether he could ever return to heaven if he were to repent, but he concludes it would never be the same, and he is now past the point of redemption. The only way forward for him is to stick to the plan of spreading evil and sin to this paradise. Uriel notices multiple different facial expressions and rapid changes in demeanor taking place with Satan. He wonders what he has witnessed and how he might handle the situation. Uriel moves back toward the gates of Eden, and before he gets far, he comes across God. He informs God of the fallen angel he just met and the strange behavior he witnessed. God knows that Satan is once again plotting to attack mankind. Knowing this, God sends the angel Raphael to chase down Satan and inform Adam and Eve of the impending danger. Satan makes his way toward Eden with the intent of corrupting Adam and Eve, the first man and woman created from the dust of the earth. When he finally arrives, he finds Eve sitting alone and admiring the beauty of the flowers. It is here that he chooses to take the form of a serpent. He creeps up next to her and whispers sweet words into her ear, persuading her to eat from the tree of knowledge, the one tree God forbade them from consuming. Initially, Eve responds with reluctance, explaining she has been told that they will surely die if they eat from it. But Satan counters with enticing words that once they eat from it, they will become like God and will know good and evil. The words settle deep within her, and despite all she has been taught, she feels an overwhelming desire to bite into the fruit. It is here that Satan realizes his plan is coming to fruition. Once Eve eats, she becomes aware of the world around her and quickly shares the fruit with Adam. Adam eats, and the fall of man is sealed. They now share in the knowledge of good and evil, a gift that will ultimately lead to their downfall and the corruption of all mankind. Soon after, God learns of the fallen couple and confronts them. He finds Adam and Eve hiding, but rather than being able to protect them, God must cast them out of Eden and into the world, forever changed. The consequences of their actions ripple through all of humanity for generations to come, as it is here that we find ourselves suffering the consequences of original sin. And thus, the cycle of evil and sin begins, all sparked by the jealousy and greed of one angel seeking vengeance against the Creator. Thank you for joining us in this first part of the story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next exciting part. Stay tuned for more as we delve deeper into this captivating tale. See you in the next video.